Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something that might seem a little bit counterintuitive at first, and that's finding freedom through commitment.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's funny, right? We always think freedom means having like tons and tons of choices, but is that really how it works?
Yeah.
You know that feeling, don't you? You sit down, you're going to watch one episode on Netflix.
Right.
2 hours later, you're still scrolling.
Yeah. I know that feeling very well.
Or how about when you get that menu at a restaurant and it's like the size of a textbook, And suddenly you're like, wait, why am I even here?
It's too much, right? You can't even remember what you wanted in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So this isn't just like, us complaining, is it? This is actually like a real thing.
Yeah. So what's fascinating about this is that it's not just, kind of a funny anecdote, like we all experience. It's actually, a very well-documented psychological phenomenon called the paradox of choice. And it's this idea that the more options that we have, the harder it actually becomes to choose. So we end up feeling paralyzed, and ultimately less free.
Okay, so if having endless possibilities doesn't actually make us feel free, what does?
Yeah.
That's where this idea of commitment comes in.
Right.
Which, again, might seem a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But to unpack this a little bit, let's shift gears for a second and think about some of the most successful entrepreneurs we can think of.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these people, right?
Yeah.
Like, they didn't get there by, like, spreading themselves super thin across tons of different things.
Exactly.
So what's going on there?
So if we think about, how this connects to this bigger picture of commitment, it really highlights, I think, the power of commitment. If we think about someone like Bezos and Amazon, right? I mean, he didn't start off trying to, be in every industry, be everything to everyone.
Right.
He really had one very specific, very laser-focused vision, which was to become the online bookstore.
Yeah.
And that was it. And from that focused commitment, everything else was able to grow.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like they achieved this incredible success not by chasing every shiny object that came along, but by really like pouring all their energy and focus into one specific thing.
Yes.
And it's almost like they sort of debunk this myth,
Yeah.
this myth of trying everything.
Yeah.
And they actually proved that true achievement often comes from dedicated commitment to one thing.
Right. It seems counterintuitive, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really raises an interesting question for all of us, which is, why do we resist commitment so much?
Right.
Because it's often portrayed as like the opposite of freedom, right?
That's such a great question, yeah. I think for me, a lot of it comes down to fear of missing out. That feeling of, what if I choose the wrong path and then there was something better out there?
Right.
And it's hard, right? Because we're constantly told that we can have it all,
Oh, yeah.
which just isn't really true.
And it puts so much pressure on us, doesn't it?
Totally, yeah.
It's like we're trapped in this constant state of what if,
Yeah.
always comparing ourselves to like these impossible standards and feeling like we're always, one step behind.
Right.
But here's the key, I think. Choosing or making a choice doesn't have to mean closing doors forever.
Okay, so it's more about like prioritizing rather than saying no to something completely.
Exactly. It's about building a path,
Yeah.
not shutting down every other possibility. So by choosing to focus on what really matters,
Right.
we create space for deeper commitment, And I think ultimately that leads to a more fulfilling life.
I love that. I love that reframing, like prioritizing instead of closing doors. It just takes so much pressure off, I think.
Yeah, totally.
You don't have to find that perfect choice.
Right.
Just like, what's more important to me right now? Yeah.
Exactly. And it lets us shift our perspective,
Yeah.
from constantly looking for, the next new option to really cultivating and appreciating and nurturing, what we already have.
This is making me think about relationships because it's like, in our modern like swipe right culture,
Yeah.
it almost seems like relationships are disposable,
Right.
Like if it doesn't bring instant gratification, just swipe left and move on to the next one.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, are we so busy chasing the next best thing that we're missing out on the chance to really connect?
Yeah.
You
To build something meaningful.
Right.
To build something lasting.
Yeah.
So how does this commitment thing play into like finding freedom in our relationships?
Yeah. I think that's where we see this idea of freedom through commitment play out in a really powerful way.
Okay.
When we shift our focus from constantly seeking, new connections
Mm.
to really cultivating the ones that we have.
Okay.
We kind of unlock this different type of freedom.
So you're saying like the freedom that comes from knowing you have that strong foundation of, love and support.
Yeah, exactly. It's about investing in those deep, committed relationships.
Okay.
The partnerships, the friendships, the family bonds
Oh, yeah.
that provide, stability and security, even through all of life's ups and downs.
Yeah.
We're talking about the kind of connections where you can truly be yourself.
Yeah.
You feel seen, you feel understood,
Right.
and you know that you're not alone,
Yeah.
no matter what challenges come up.
It's interesting because that kind of stability, in a way, can be, like, incredibly freeing, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not constantly, like, wondering where you stand
Yeah, yeah.
or worried about the relationship, falling apart if
I'll
there's, like, any little bump in the road.
Right, and that's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We often associate commitment with, feeling trapped,
Yeah, like limited.
limited, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, I think what it does is it actually creates this secure base
Okay.
from which we can actually grow and explore life with more confidence.
So it's not about limiting ourselves, but more about choosing to invest our energy
Yes.
in the people and connections that really matter to us.
Precisely. And this idea of commitment as a source of kind of strength and clarity, I think, extends beyond just, our personal relationships.
Okay.
I think it can also be a really powerful tool for dealing with the mental clutter and the overwhelm.
Hold on, say that again.
That-
You're saying that by committing to fewer things, we can actually, like, clear up mental space?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're at a restaurant, right?
Okay.
And one restaurant has a menu with like hundreds of overwhelming options.
Right.
And the other one has, a limited but carefully curated selection of like exceptional dishes.
Okay.
Which one would you feel more relaxed in?
Oh, the one with the smaller menu for sure. Yeah.
Because I think I'd spend, half the time
Right.
just like trying to figure out what to order.
Exactly. And that's kind of what commitment can do for our minds, right? It kind of declutters that mental noise
Okay.
by reducing that constant barrage of choices that we're bombarded with every day.
So by consciously choosing to commit to fewer things,
Yeah.
we free up mental space and energy to focus on what actually matters.
Precisely. It's about creating clarity and intention in our lives rather than feeling pulled in a million different directions, right?
Right.
By every, fleeting desire or whim.
It's about being intentional.
Yes, exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our values and creating a life that feels more authentic and more fulfilling.
This is making me think about how we often view limitations as this like negative thing.
Right.
But you're saying like embracing limitations can actually be like a good thing.
Yeah, I think we often see limitations as something to overcome or break free from, but I think they can be incredibly powerful catalysts.
For creativity and even efficiency.
Okay.
Think about, some of the greatest works of art or groundbreaking innovations or even scientific discoveries throughout history, right?
Yeah.
So many of them were born from working within constraints,
Mm.
whether it was limited resources or time pressure or specific rules that they had to follow.
So instead of viewing limitations as like roadblocks,
Right.
we can see them as opportunities to think outside the box to come up with new solutions.
Exactly. When we're forced to work within certain boundaries, we have to tap into a different kind of resourcefulness,
Yeah.
and ingenuity.
We have to get creative
Yes.
to make the most of what we have.
Right. We have to prioritize what's truly important,
Yeah.
and find ways to kind of make the most of what we have to work with.
It's like limitations can actually push us to be more focused and efficient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They force us to make those deliberate choices, and commit to a specific path, which can lead to greater clarity and a deeper sense of purpose, ultimately.
This whole conversation is really shifting my perspective on what it means to be like truly free.
Yeah.
We've gone from fearing commitment to seeing it as this, like key
Right.
to unlocking freedom and mental clarity and even creative breakthroughs.
It's a powerful shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges our kind of conventional understanding of freedom.
Yeah.
And it encourages us to consider this different path, one where conscious commitment actually becomes the foundation for, a more fulfilling and intentional life.
Okay, so this is a big question then.
Yeah.
If we're constantly being told, by society, by everything around us, keep your options open, how do we even start embracing commitment?
Right. That is the question.
Like, how do we even figure out
Yeah.
what is worth committing to?
It all comes back to recognizing that true freedom isn't about having it all, right?
Hmm.
It's about making conscious choices that align with our values and that allow us to live with purpose and intention.
Yeah.
So instead of chasing, every shiny object,
Yeah.
we can choose to focus on the things that really resonate with us
Right.
and build a life around those priorities.
So it's like trading, like the illusion of limitless options
Yeah.
for the genuine satisfaction of living a life that feels
Yes.
authentic and aligned with who we are.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective, I think, can be so incredibly liberating. Instead of constantly second-guessing ourselves, feeling overwhelmed by endless choices,
Yeah.
scattering our efforts in a million different directions.
We can tap into that power of focus,
Yes.
of commitment.
Exactly.
This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, it's been great.
I think we've really explored how commitment, rather than limiting us, can actually be this, like, key
Yeah.
to unlocking, a deeper sense of freedom, of
Yeah.
clarity, of purpose in our lives.
Totally.
But where do we even begin?
Yeah.
Like, how do we figure out, like, what deserves our commitment?
I think it starts with asking ourselves some really honest questions.
Okay.
Like, what truly matters to us?
Yeah.
What are our core values? What brings us joy? What brings us that sense of fulfillment?
Yeah.
And then based on that, which areas of our lives would benefit from, like, a deeper level of commitment.
Yeah.
Maybe it's our relationships,
Yeah.
our work, creative pursuits, or even just our commitment to, like, personal growth and well-being.
Right. So after we've thought about that, then it's about taking action.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely, yeah.
Even if it's like a tiny little step.
It's recognizing that even the smallest acts of commitment,
Yeah.
can create this ripple effect
Okay.
that leads to positive change and a greater sense of freedom over time.
Right. So maybe it's like setting aside a little bit of time each day
Right.
to work on, a project that we're passionate about.
Yeah, or having an honest conversation with, someone we love about deepening that connection.
Yeah. Or even just like committing to prioritizing our own well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those little things can make such a big difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
What area of your life could benefit from, just a little bit deeper commitment?
Hmm?
And what's one step that you could take today to move in that direction?
Yeah. Take some time to reflect on that.
Yeah.
The answers might surprise you.
And remember, like, the journey of 1,000 miles
Right.
begins with a single step.
You got it.
Thanks for joining us for this exploration of freedom through commitment.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to think about,
Yeah.
how conscious choices and dedicated action
Right.
can lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Absolutely.
Until next time.